Hey everybody, this is Mac with Veterans Achieve Business Systems. Um, we were just speaking off camera here that I'm very pleased to have Kendall Clark speaking. She's a real trooper. Uh, we had a cancellation due to illness, and Kendall said, "I'll do it." So she already gets big kudos from me filling in for me.
Gotta be a
Kendall,
team player. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm excited about this. Tied into the mission statement for the veterans group. Um, we started this chapter of Achieve Systems a little over a year ago.
Okay.
Achieve Systems uh, being an international business group. To me, business groups are a dime a dozen, and everybody wants you to join. Nobody really supplies value, or not nobody, but most people don't supply value.
Yeah.
And I looked at Achieve for over a year, and I was real impressed with what they offered. I love the global platform. I love the fact that there's very few of us that overlap so completely with somebody else that we're eroding each other's value. Um, I was really disappointed in other veterans groups that I was involved with. I've come to refer to them as yellow pages for Facebook.
Oh my
I could
gosh.
go on, I could see a website, I could get a link, um, and a tag, carpenter, CPA, web designer, but there was nothing for veterans specific to help
Okay.
those guys and gals that have served our countries and our communities. And I say countries because um, uh, we have other countries, Canada being a main one. And the president of the Canadian part of the organization had reached out to me, Laura Armstrong, and said, Mac, is this just for the US? I said, no. I said, all free countries have veterans, and we include law enforcement and first responders into the jacket wear uh, tag. I said, I don't know a lot about the Royal Mounties. I don't know a lot about the British Navy, the Royal Navy, but I'm sure that there are similar uh, issues when somebody has served and when they're starting. And I think this is kind of my lead in to you because the wealth advisory position, wealth management part that you're a pro in, we all know enough to be dangerous. And that and if we mess it up, it can be devastating. Sometimes you never get back to where you can say, okay, I'm going to be able to do this. So I'm going to turn this over to you. I want to thank
Okay.
you first off, but why don't you take it away?
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to be speaking. I'm glad that I get to talk to just a bunch of my friends on here today. Actually, this is pretty cool. Um, but yeah, so the main thing I wanted to start off is like, how many of us have actually had a financial education? Like, raise your hand if you have. Oh, a couple. Okay, cool. How many of us have to deal with money on a daily basis? All of us, everybody should be raising their hand, right? So it's really crazy that our education system doesn't help us with that because it's something that we all have to deal with. And yeah, as Max said, if you don't take the right steps or if you don't start early enough, you can have some really devastating consequences later on in life when it comes to your financial future, comes to retirement, comes to leaving something behind for your family. And so, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can kind of talk about some financial wellness. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So, I'm just going to tell you guys all a little bit about me. So my partner David and I started our company a couple years ago. We started in the finances industry and realized how much of a need there was just because of the lack of education and how devastating the consequences can be if you don't know what you're doing. And so we kind of found a passion just helping people get their financial future together. And then I've seen a huge difference in what just a small, like a couple small tweaks can make in the finances and how much it can really affect your future and also the generations to come after you too. So we really take pride in helping people and really try to lean on the education side of things. We really want to make sure people know what they're doing and actually understand the concepts instead of most advisors will just throw accounts at you and just tell you to be on your way. Whereas we want to make sure you actually have a full understanding of what's happening in your finances. So, as I'm sure everybody is aware, most Americans are facing a tremendous amount of financial challenges today. So, about 94% of people are rely on Social Security to retire, which I don't know if any of you have seen Social Security or have received it. It's not typically a very large paycheck to begin with. And also, generations in, especially my generation, we're probably not even going to have Social Security. So, it's definitely not something that should be relied upon. And whenever you reach that age where you are trying to rely upon Social Security, it can just have major consequences. I met a lady a couple of weeks ago. She found out her Social Security check is only $1,000, and that's all she has to live on in retirement. And so it's a very dangerous thing to not make sure that you are setting yourself up outside of that. Also, a large percentage of people end up leaving the workforce earlier than they anticipate. That's due to health reasons, family reasons, just a number of things can happen in your life that lead to you leaving work early. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to work forever, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And you need to make sure that you're prepared for any future possibilities. So, once again, setting up a personal plan can have a dramatic difference on what that looks like for you. And then less than 1 in 5 people feel confident about their capability to retire, which is really unfortunate. I learned a stat the other day that only 5% of people who reach the age of 65 can actually retire. Most people that reach that age actually have to continue working or just are going to work for the rest of their lives or just have to live in kind of squalor just to be able to survive if they are not capable of working. So I invite everybody to like kind of think about your financial situation, think about how you feel about it. And hopefully by the end of this, some of you guys will feel a little more empowered to kind of take a step forward and to make sure that your financial future is secured. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
We'll open it up at the end because then I think we'll get on a roll.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. I like it. So, as I stated, a lot of advisors, a lot of financial institutions, they'll hand you accounts and they'll tell you to be on their way. They're not going to give you a comprehensive plan. They're not going to give you a total solution. And so, what we like to do is we could do what's called a financial needs analysis. And with that financial needs analysis, we help people build out what's called their financial house. So, and that financial house encompasses a number of different things that I'm going to hit throughout this entire presentation. But it's based upon protecting your income, investing properly, having an emergency fund, getting your will in place, and saving for your children. So, this is kind of in a nutshell what I tried to build out for people. And like having a plan in place like this is a big game changer for most people. So most Americans live in kind of what's called a debt cycle. So they're just paying off their debt, they're living paycheck to paycheck. They're not saving, they're not investing, they don't have $1,000 to put their hands on if an emergency were to pop up, which is not a great way to live. I'm sure a lot of people understand that. So, what we try to do is teach people three different steps. The first one is to invest properly and to pay yourself first. So, essentially, what that means is making sure that you are saving for retirement. You are setting aside that money to make sure that you're okay. You are setting aside that money for your emergency fund and making sure that you have the proper accounts to create financial stability. And then the second step after that is paying off debt. So it's really difficult to to build stability whenever you're trying to pay your credit card bill every month and it's just higher than you expected and you just keep adding to it. The interest rate keeps building it up more and more. So creating a proper debt stacking plan can be a really big game changer as far as getting out of debt. And then the third step from there is protecting your income. So if something were to happen to the main breadwinner of a family, we have to make sure that that family is still protected, that that family is still able to take care of themselves. If any, like if God forbid, somebody dies and their income is no longer there, especially if you're in a dual income household or you're a single parent with kids, you need to make sure that that income is protected. And I will discuss all of that throughout this whole presentation. So starting with the first one was pay yourself first. So there are three different fundamental accounts that we like to teach everybody to set up. The first one is an emergency account. So we tell people to have about 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in it. And we try to make it to where this counts a really liquid. The main issue that people run into with this is they like to hang out in their bank savings account. And a lot of people don't realize that your bank is giving you less than 1% return on that account. And so technically you're not even keeping up with inflation. There's also a lot of people who I don't know if you guys all have cash buried in your backyard or hanging out in your underwear drawer, but technically due to inflation, that money is losing value over time. So you need to make sure that your savings account is one, sitting somewhere where it's liquid and accessible, but not too accessible so that you're not just like running out to eat every day and just like, oh, I have money in my savings, I'll just pay for that. But you also want to make sure that it's building up assets for you while it's waiting there. So you have to make sure that you're in the proper fund to do that. And yeah, life is going to happen. So you need to make sure that you have this. It's one of the first steps to building financial stability. I commonly joke it's my tire fund. Anybody that lives here in Colorado knows that there's a million potholes in the road. If you can't afford to replace your tires every time you hit a pothole, then it can be a huge financial issue if you're just not prepared for that. So being prepared for emergencies is a big thing. And the next one we teach is to have a short-term account. Sometimes I combine this with the emergency account, sometimes I don't, depending upon what people's goals are. If you're saving up for a job or if you're saving up just in case you're going to lose your job or saving up for a house, you want to make sure that you're somewhere where you're creating assets, you have enough time to save up for that, and your money is building itself while you're waiting to purchase that house, to go on a large vacation, to do whatever it is that you want to do. And then the third account that we teach people to have is a wealth building account. So these are your typical retirement accounts, like your 401k plan through employers, your Roth IRA, your traditional IRA, stuff like that. And you want to make sure that those accounts are actually growing appropriately and have the proper return on investment, or else that can also have a huge effect upon what retirement looks like. So when we talk about investing, there's a few different concepts that help people kind of understand it a little bit better and be able to make proper moves inside the market. So one of them is the power of compound interest. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. Like, have you guys raised your hand if you have heard of the power of compound interest? Yeah, okay. So it's one of the most powerful concepts in finances. It plays a huge deal. So I'm just going to give you guys an example right here. This is let's just say someone invested $1,000 for their child at birth, and they put it in a simple interest account. At the age of 67 for that kid, they only have $7,000 in their account because it was simple interest. That means the interest was only building up on the principal amount. It was only building up on that $1,000 the whole time. Whereas compound interest builds up on even the interest already earned. So what that means is if you invest $1,000 and that grows to like $2,000 the next year, the interest you're gaining is now the interest on top of that 2,000, as opposed to your just principal amount that was right there. So over time, compound interest can play a really big part in how much money you have saved up in retirement. So in this example, $1,000 investment 67 years later has grown to $400,000. So it can make a really big difference. And also within the power of compound interest is called the rule of 72. I'm not going to go too deep into that one, but essentially what it states is that your money should double every 6 to 8 years inside the proper investments. So The next one is the importance of rate of return, which is huge. A lot of people come to me and they're like, "Oh, it's fine. My investment's doing 8%. I don't need to worry about trying to get into something that's higher." Well, 1% can make a big difference in how your investments perform and how your assets grow. So in this one, if we look at that same $1,000 that we just invested at birth, if we put it in in an investment that's only doing 3%, even with compound interest, we've only grown to $7,000 just over. Whereas at 6%, we're now at 55,000, and then at 9%, we're at that 406,000. So making sure that you're in the proper investments that are actually giving you the best rate of return possible is really important. Like even if we just dropped 1%, we had eight, we would be somewhere around $300,000 right here. I don't know the exact amount, but it wouldn't be it wouldn't be very close to this. So making sure that you have the correct rate of return, especially for whatever your investment profile is, can play a really big part in what retirement looks like for you. The next couple things are the 3 Ds of investing. So, a lot of people have heard of the first two. The third one, maybe not so much, but they're discipline, diversification, and dollar cost averaging. So, discipline essentially just refers to your mindset inside the market. Everybody knows the market fluctuates, it's going to go up and down. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. A lot of people see those bad days though and want to like take out of the market. They want to withdraw. They don't want to participate in the market during those days. And you need to have the discipline to understand and remember your goals and know that you have to stay invested during those times. And so sometimes that's beneficial to work with someone like me because you can just call us up and be like, "Oh my God, the market's dropping. What's happening?" And we can talk you through it. So just making sure that you're disciplined and making sure that you stay invested no matter what the market is doing is a big thing. Also, diversification, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of making sure that you're not invested in a single fund. So, a lot of people will invest in just a single stock, and then all of your money will fluctuate with whatever that one stock is doing, right? So, if that company crashes, your money's just gone. Or if that company does great, then you've made some money off of it. But there's no diversification there, which means that you're taking a higher level of risk with your money. So you want to make sure whenever you're investing that you diversify out. And there's a really easy way to do that, which I'll show you guys here up in a minute. But you just want to make sure that your portfolio consists of multiple different things. You're not putting all of your eggs in one basket per se, and that you are properly balanced inside all of your investments. So the third one's dollar cost averaging. A lot of people haven't heard of it. I don't know if any of you guys have, but essentially what that means is dollar cost averaging states that inside a fluctuating market, you you are actually acquiring more funds whenever the market is fluctuating than you would if you had a rising market. So I know that that doesn't quite make sense, so I have a slide right here that'll kind of explain it a little bit further. So we have one investor right here. Let's say they're just doing $10 or they're doing $100 a month. So investor A is in what's called a rising market. You see that there's no fluctuation. The market's just going up. And then investor B right here is in what's called a fluctuating market. So you see that it drops and then it goes back up. So if they're both investing $100 a month, investor A is not acquiring quite as many stocks or shares of a stock because the price of that share is going up every time they invest. Whereas investor B right here, the market drops. So whenever they purchased a share right here, they got more shares than investor A did. And then right here, they got more shares than they did last month, and then more shares here. And so whenever the market rises again, you actually acquire more money, you get more assets. So you kind of get more bang for your buck. So I always tell people like whenever the market drops, it's on sale, like buy now. So this is a really good way of looking at it. And dollar cost averaging is a really good technique for kind of lowering the average cost per share over time. So it's really useful just to have that $25 a month that you're just popping into your shares. It makes a big difference in the long run. And eventually, like if you average it out, you've paid less per share than you think you have. So as far as diversification goes, I stated earlier I would come back around to it. So one of the easiest way to diversify out your portfolio is a mutual fund. So, mutual funds are professionally managed money. So, an individual investor can purchase a share of a mutual fund, and then your money is now pooled inside that mutual fund. And a mutual fund always has a fund manager. So, the whole purpose of that fund manager is to ensure that that fund performs properly. It's literally their whole job. Like they do nothing else. They're there to make you money. And it doesn't matter if you have 25 bucks in it. It doesn't matter if you have $1,000 in it. Your money's still in it. Your money still has as much value as someone who has more money, who has more shares. And so, within a mutual fund, you typically can have up to 200 different stocks inside that mutual fund. So that means whenever you purchase one share of a mutual fund, you've purchased a small portion of every one of those stocks, which means that the only way you can lose all of your money inside a mutual fund is if every single one of the companies inside that mutual fund crashes on the same day. And if that happens, I think we have bigger problems in retirement at that point. So maybe hopefully that'll never happen, but you never know. The world's crazy. But yeah, so mutual funds are a really great way to make sure that you're diversified out. You can also find different types of mutual funds that are like in the tech field and the medical field. And then you can also diversify out your portfolio the larger it gets. So, like if you have $40,000, you're probably going to have 3 or 4 different mutual funds inside your portfolio. So then you're in 400 to 500 different stocks. That makes a really big difference in protecting your money and diversifying out that risk. So a lot of people wait to invest. They don't start investing until like their late 30s, early 40s. And there's kind of a high cost of waiting to investing. So none of these numbers are meant to scare anybody. So don't, if this is, if you guys aren't caught up to where this is, don't worry about it. There are ways to catch up. This is just for educational purposes only. But if you look at it, so let's say we have right here in the far left column, we have a 27-year-old that invested $100 a month at a 9% rate of return, really important. By the time that they retire at the age of 67, they have $471,000. But let's say this person decided to wait 1 year longer, they decided to wait till the age of 28. They lost $40,000 just by waiting 1 year to start investing. And then it increases dramatically from there. So if you hit the age of 32 and you're like, oh, I'll start investing now, you've missed out on $175,000. And then take it further, age of 42, you've missed out on $350,000. So there is a high cost of waiting. That being said, don't freak out about your current position if you guys aren't totally caught up. There are ways to catch up, but the cost of waiting is very dramatic. And I always tell people the best day to start investing was yesterday. The second best is today. So the sooner you begin, the greater potential for growth that you have inside your investments. But a lot of people come to me and they're like, I can't afford to invest. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I have no money to set aside. Well, you can start investing for as little as 25 bucks a month. And honestly, the biggest part is just getting started. And with that, how many people can afford 25 bucks a month? And so I tell people to kind of address their financial priorities. So I don't know about you guys. I like my Starbucks. I go to Starbucks a lot, but Starbucks has gotten expensive. I think this is probably a little outdated now. But just by replacing Starbucks a couple times a week, I can save 10, maybe even $20 now because it's gotten so pricey. And so just, making coffee at home instead of going out to Starbucks, I've saved myself 10 bucks a week. Same thing. I don't know if anybody here door dashes or orders food, goes out to eat a lot. Like try to think of like whatever it is that your priorities that you do that maybe you could be cut out a little bit. But everybody has something, right? That they can cut out once or twice a week just to make a big difference in their finances. And so in this situation, we cut out, we saved 50 bucks a week. So that's 200 bucks a month. So let's look at what 200 bucks a month can do. So we invest this 200 bucks a month, really important, at a 9% rate of return. After 10 years, that 200 bucks a month is almost $40,000. We're at 38, yeah, or $38,000. So if you look, the blue is how much you've contributed, and then the orange is the interest that you've acquired on your investments over that 10 years. But then we can take it a step further and look Now, what if we look at it over 35 years? So the blue is once again your contributions. This is your 200 bucks a month. The orange is how much interest you've gained. So you've built up almost $600,000 in assets just by cutting out Starbucks and cutting out DoorDash, makes a really big difference. So everybody always comes to me and they're like, I can't invest. What can we cut out? What can we do to make just a small difference and have a huge impact upon your financial future? So, and then the next thing that everybody needs to know is their financial independence number. So, I'm sure everybody can kind of figure out what it is. It's the amount of money that you need to have to retire, at what age you want to retire, and live the lifestyle that you want. Big ones. Some people want to be a little fancier than others. So, uh, but yeah, let's say we have a 35-year-old that wants to retire at the age of 67, and they say that they only need 50K a year to survive. Well, we have to take into account inflation. So by the time that they reach the age of 67, that 50K is going to be equal to about $129,000 a year. So that means that they have a financial independence number of $1.9 million. So how are they going to reach that? So once again, rate of return is really important. So if they invested in something at a 4% rate of return, in order to reach their financial independence number, they would need to invest almost $2,500 a month. And if we went further, at a 6% rate of return, $1,650 a month, and 9% rate of return, $860 a month. Let's also see what happens if they decide to wait. So at the age of 40, at a 9% rate of return, it's now 1,400. 45, it's 23, and 50, it's 4,000 a month. So there's a dramatic impact that waiting can have, and also that rate of return that I mentioned can have. So really making sure that you're invested in the right place and getting started as soon as possible is really important. So we talked a bunch about investing, but what's the biggest hindrance to financial freedom is debt. And I mentioned that earlier. I think 50% of Americans have at least $20,000 worth of credit card debt was the last stat that I heard, which it's really difficult to reach financial freedom when you're trying to pay off your credit card every month. But and it's really easy to wander into debt. You're never going to be able to get out of it without a plan. There's no way. It's super easy to pick up your credit card, go to the restaurant, spend $300 on food, and then just not even think about it and let that interest rate compound on that. So that's also another place where the power of compounding interest can have a negative effect on you. Because once again, that interest rate will compound on whatever amount is in your account. So it's compounding on top of itself. So if you don't properly plan to get out of debt, you're never going to get out of it. You're not going to wander out of it. You need to make some temporary sacrifices like that Starbucks, that DoorDash, just to make sure that you can actually get out of debt, and those sacrifices will be worth it in the end. So one way that we teach people how to accelerate paying off debt is called debt stacking. It's also referred to as debt snowballing by people who are Dave Ramsey followers. But essentially, what it does is it takes the minimum payment, the total amount due, and the interest rate, and you can kind of calculate the fastest way out of debt and the fastest way to pay off interest rates. So, like in this example right here, this person is paying $2,700 worth of debt in credit cards and mortgage every month. So what we do is we pay off the first card, and they're paying 220 bucks a month on it. We roll that 220 bucks a month into the next one. So now that so this second one, you see they were paying 353. Now we're going to bump that 220 into it. We're going to pay 573 a month until it's paid off. And then we're going to roll the minimum payments from those into the next one. So that's why it's called snowballing, because your minimum payment kind of snowballs and builds up, and eventually everything gets paid off faster and you avoid a dramatic amount of interest in it. So in this example, this person avoided $130,000 of interest, and they also paid off their debt 15 years sooner than they would have. So debt stacking can be really powerful, and it can make a huge difference in what your future looks like. So next, we'll talk about protecting your income. So at my brokerage, we believe in the theory of decreasing responsibility. So essentially what that means is earlier in life, you have kids, you have debt, you have a mortgage. You haven't had time to build up your assets yet, so you don't have a lot of money in your savings. So at this point in time, you really need to make sure that you have some type of life insurance. And it's really important. So, like I said earlier, the main breadwinner of a family passes, the family still has bills. The income from that breadwinner will not be there any longer. So we need to guarantee that there is some type of assurance that they are protected against disaster. But what we also believe is that once you've built up your assets over here later in life at retirement, let's say you've reached that financial independence number, let's say it's that 35-year-old, he now has that $1.9 million. His kids are grown, they're out of their debt is paid off or a lot lower, and their mortgage is paid off. At this point, if he has $1.9 million, he doesn't need to be paying an insurance company to insure his life. At this point, he's what we consider self-insured. So at this time, we just want, our goal is to get people to this point and to grow your assets and to get you to the point where you're self-insured. So a lot of people like to believe that they need to have a whole life policy or a cash value policy. So I'm going to give you an example of what happens inside those policies and we can kind of talk about it. So we have a cash value policy. They're sometimes referred to as whole life, universal life, variable life. There's a bunch of different names for them. I think there's indexed universal life, stuff like that. So in this one, let's say we have John and Mary. They're both 35, and for 235 bucks a month, they both have $100,000 worth of coverage. So what that means is if John dies, Mary's going to receive $100,000. However, also in these accounts, they tell you that, hey, we'll invest for you, which sounds great, right? So the insurance company, by the time John and Mary reach the age of 65, they have $74,000 hanging out in their savings account inside their whole life policy. But let's say that John doesn't reach the age of 65, so he's gone. Mary is going to get the $100,000. The insurance company is going to keep the $74,000 right here. So Mary does not receive this amount. So, and then also, how long do you think $100,000 is going to last, especially in today's economy? Not very long. So what we like to teach people to do is called buy term and invest the difference. So with that, we're going to take that same $235 that John and Mary would be paying over here. We're going to buy them a term policy that gets them to retirement. And John and Mary are going to have $250,000 worth of coverage now, as opposed to the $100,000. And they're only going to be paying a monthly premium of $82 a month for both of their policies. So we're going to invest the remaining amount. So that's 153, but we're going to invest it separately in their own account. So by the time they reach the age of 65, they have $282,000 in their savings. And that's their account. Nobody touches it. Insurance company doesn't have control over it. But let's say something happens to John. Mary's going to get $250,000 and she's going to get whatever's in their investment account at that time. So it's a lot better of a deal. And our purpose is just to make sure that you're covered until you hit retirement and to make sure that you reach that financial independence number so that you can be self-insured. So yeah, now we're rounding back to the financial house that I talked about. So the foundation of the house is that income protection. And then the roof of the house I haven't mentioned yet is actually having a will in place. Only 30% of adults actually have a will in place. If you don't and something happens to you, the government has one for you. So definitely really important to get one and make sure that your family is covered if, God forbid, anything were to happen. And also, I mean, all of us exit eventually, so we should still have one in place as it is. And then I talked about that emergency fund, making sure that we have that 3 to 6 months worth of expenses built up. And then we talked about the debt stacking, calculating our debt freedom date, making sure that we're going to be free of debt, be able to invest, not live paycheck to paycheck. And then from there, we talk about planning for retirement, calculating that financial independence number, and then saving for your kids. So does having a plan like this seem like it would be super beneficial. From what I've known, everybody has really appreciated it. And I've seen it really some change some lives. So, and that's all I've got for you guys.
Wow, and that's a load. And that
That's a lot of information,
uh,
I know.
hey, why don't you put your QRs back up
Okay, we'll do.
for a minute so anybody can capture it, get their phones out.
I also can, if anybody's like watching this on their phone, I can like pop the link in the chat here in a minute.
Yeah, if you would do that, the recording will be out shortly, both on the Veterans Achieve Business Systems YouTube channel and then the Achieve Pro
Okay.
YouTube channel. I'll send you a copy so you can use it for your own purposes. Um, yeah, and I think I mentioned this to you back in the 70s. I sold life insurance. I'm a believer
Yeah,
in life insurance.
I remember.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and uh, when I was doing it, it was pretty much all whole life.
Yep.
And the great things about being an insurance agent is you sell something and you get paid for the whole next year.
Yeah.
The thing about being an insurance agent, if those policies drop, they take all that money back. And
Yeah. Well, there, after a certain amount of time, but a lot of like the whole life nows have surrender charges so that they just don't do that. So,
right. And but you know, well, I think about my own what do I do is I've come to say, my I lost my wife 6 years ago. She was the healthy one, and I had to reinvent my life. And fortunately, I'm a believer in insurance, and that helped a lot. But I think of my kids, my nieces, my nephews,
yeah.
and what do they do? And I tell them, do some sort of universal life, a term policy, so that you at least have a year or two worth of money
Yeah.
where you can get past the grieving and not have to be worrying about what you're doing in that. And do you go back to school? Do you quit school because
Yeah.
you have to get a job?
And
Uh,
that's definitely a huge part of like making sure that that's covered. Like you have to do that insurance needs analysis to make sure that you're giving them a proper amount of coverage. Because yeah, if something happens, they're not going to want to go to work on Monday, you know? So huge, that's hugely important.
and I understand that, and none of us want insurance until we need insurance. That it's just a fact of life. I was talking to a younger guy yesterday, and he is he was talking about how he had spent a whole bunch of money at Christmas on his kids, and he's separated. So being the dad, he wanted to buy Christmas presents, and then his car blew up,
Oh my
and
gosh.
then he went out and got a new car, and that he had it for 16 hours, and somebody ran a stop sign and totaled the new car.
Oh my goodness.
And he's like 31, and I remember being 31. Thank God I'm not that age anymore. But how do you protect yourself? We all see if you have $500,000, come over to blah 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 company.
Yeah.
Who has $500,000 getting
Most
around
people don't,
that they
especially,
can?
yeah, especially younger. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you suggest to people? Are there such a things as I got $100 I can start with? What do I do? Do I put that into a term policy?
So
Or
definitely, like I try to assess where they're at in their life. So if they have kids, if they have anybody that's dependent upon them, we go with that. We go with that insurance first, and then we get them investing. But it really depends upon where you're at. Like I have a lot of clients that are single, And so I started them out investing, and then we work on the life insurance a little later. So you kind of have to assess like where they're at, their goals, and everything from there.
Well, and I understand that part of it, but what if it's, you know, yeah, I don't have a spouse, but my mom, who always took care of me, put herself through college and did all that work and let me have a childhood.
Yeah,
If something happens to us, we still have to think about our parents
yeah.
and that it's not always about the kids.
Yeah, and that's fair, but like my hope is that at that point everybody has done all this. That's why I try to get everybody starting as soon as possible because we don't want you reaching that age of 65 and you're like, I haven't done any of this yet. And there are situations where like it would make sense to put them in something different, but it really the goal is to get people to where they're not paying the insurance company their whole life,
Yeah. Well,
especially.
I know I had a 20-year term
Yep.
policy. I had $1 million policy. It was about $1,600 a year when I got it, and it expired a few years ago, and it was going to be $1,600 a month to continue it.
Yeah.
That there's like, I don't care. My kids are grown. They can take care of it.
Yeah.
I'm
Like
putting that
at that
money in
point,
my
yeah. So
pocket.
your kids are grown. I'm assuming everything's paid off. Like at this point you probably have enough assets built up that like you can afford your own funeral. Like and that's kind of the point is to not be paying an insurance company for something that you're never gonna see. So
Well, I think so many of us we think if I die, I'm gone. It's not going to matter. Who gets
yeah,
it? I don't. I have no partners. I have no kids.
yeah.
It can go
You still
to.
gotta do something with your body. So
That's right. Throw some rocks over me so the
yeah.
vultures don't get to me. Yes.
Bury you in the backyard, it'll be fine.
Who else has some questions for Kendra? Oh, Tim. Oh, sorry. Talking about. Tim, you get your hand up, buddy. You got to unmute.
Yeah, Kendra, that was a good presentation. I am a registered Social Security analyst, and
Okay.
so I do meet with people to talk to them about Social Security. A lot of times I talk with business owners because you were talking about having a 9% growth rate, and so
Yeah.
you need to find the products that will give you 9%. Well, one of the products that'll give you 8% is Social Security. And so when I talk with business owners, a lot of business owners talk to their CPAs and they try to pay the least amount of Social Security that they can. And instead, they need to look at it as an investment, and maybe they can't afford, like you were saying, they don't have the Starbucks or they don't have that money. Well, they do have it because they do have to pay taxes and they do have to pay their FICA. Well, if you talk to your CPA and say, I want to put as much as I can into my FICA because now that's a business write-off, right? And it's
Yeah.
a guaranteed 8%. So
Yeah.
and then you're looking at having more money, like you said, when you do hit 65 or 67 to be able to pull out of Social Security.
Yeah, the main concern that I also have is like, especially a lot of people who are really close to retirement will probably still see their Social Security, but people who are more my age, who are in their 30s, there's a chance that we're not going to see it. It's
That
potentially going to
that's
be,
that's it. That's like saying that they're going to drop an atomic bomb at 2030,
yeah.
right?
But
That there's
the
no
thing,
there's no guarantee on that. The guarantee is the money will be there because there's so many people on Social Security. The reason it's not fixed right now is because any of the legislative bodies, senators and congressmen that are there, they know that if they were to fix it, they would lose their jobs because it means taking more money. And so
yeah,
none of them want to deal with it. They're saying,
yeah,
guess who's going to fix this? The people that are going to fix it are going to be the senators at 2030. because
Yeah.
they're going to have to fix it. They won't
No,
have a choice.
yeah, I totally agree with you. Like if I could reach retirement age and still have my Social Security, great. But from what we've seen, the US government's only going to dig itself into more and more debt. And so the we just can't be reliant upon it. And then from what I've seen is that those Social Security checks are not big. Even though, like, even when you've been, even if you've been trying to up your FICA, and even if you've been trying to and get as much in there as you can, it's just the government scalps so much of it that it's just not something that we can be totally reliant upon. If you can get it, great, nice bonus, awesome. But making sure that you are set up outside of it is incredibly important.
And that is truly important because when I sit down and talk to people, the most that somebody can get right now, even if you were Elon Musk, right?
Yeah,
The most that you could get out of Social Security right now is about $4,000 a month,
yeah.
right? That's the most you're going to get. And when I
Which
sit down and
is
talk with
that,
people and
but yeah,
say it's $4,000 a month, right? Which is only 48,000 a year. And
yeah.
if you have an income style of 70,000,
Yup.
you better you better have that 1.9 million tucked away somewhere
Hanging
because you
out.
need
Yep.
about 10 million to be able to pull 30,000 out each year of
Yeah.
your retirement plan.
Yeah.
Well,
A lot of people also consider like retirement kind of like it's like a three-legged stool, right? Like you have like your Social Security, you have your 401k plan from your employer, and then you have your own investments through yourself. And you have to have each of those legs, right? But you have to also like if one of them goes missing, the other two are still stable. It's not going to stand. So you've got to set yourself up entirely for retirement, and having your own investment accounts is incredibly important.
I think that's exactly true. And being one of the older people in most rooms these days, as when I lost my wife, I said, if I only live 10 years, I can live a fairly lavish lifestyle. If I
Yeah.
live 20 years, I'm not under a bridge, but I have to be thrifty. If I live 30 years, then I got to keep earning money. And it's always been a goal that I live one day longer than my Irish grandmother that raised me. And that just so happens to be exactly 30 years from my birthday coming up.
Oh,
That and we know it. And Steve and Arca, are closer to my age group, but we're all wondering, I didn't do enough. What do I do now? And I
so
think that's one of the cool things about Achieve. And we want to invite people to talk to us about the group that we're all involved with because they show us
yeah.
how to make a dollar here, a nickel here, $10 here, and put all that together. I've always was an independent rep. I never worked for one company. I had as many as 30 brands. And
Okay.
I would get that many paychecks every month.
Nice.
And it might be $200 on this one, it might be 4,000 or 5,000 on the other one.
Yeah,
Uh,
it adds up.
so
So
residual income is very important.
it is. Yeah. And yeah, as I was about to say, everybody's in a different situation. Like someone can come to me in their 60s and be like, I only have $100,000. What can I do? And there's still a number of different things that can be done for those people at that time. So it's not like you just have to make sure that you know what you're doing. You reach out for advice when you need it.
Yeah.
Hey, Mac,
Uh,
this
yes.
is Melanie. So I can tell, I work with seniors, and because I'm a realtor and I mainly work with seniors, helping them to downsize and move into a home that meets their needs better, or maybe they stay in their home and get it to where it'll meet their needs. But if anyone who's a senior and has a home, there is so much stuff in that home probably that can be sold, and there's some starting money right there to then turn around and invest.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that's a big thing, and I definitely personally relate with that. I live up in Evergreen. I've been up here for about 35 years, two different homes. Um, and because I always worked out of my home, I sold professional imaging cameras and video equipment to stores. I needed a big house. I live by
Oh,
myself with the two cats that I never had cats. My wife had cats. Now I got cats until they're gone. But it's like, do I move? There's a lot of equity. But if I want to stay in Evergreen, where I've been for 35 years, I'm not going to find a
yeah.
smaller house for less money. And that, so do I move to Durango? Do I move to South Fork? Well, everybody I know is in Colorado and in the I-25 corridor. I could move back to Arizona. My mom, before she passed, always said, "When are you coming home?" I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Back to Arizona." I said, "Mom, I've lived in Colorado longer than I ever lived in Arizona." And I think we all go through that. We want to stay in our own home, but do I really need a 4,000 square foot house? And that, yeah, I'm doing stuff around the house. I had a new roof on. I have painters here right now. But is that so that I can sell it, or so it's a little bit nicer for me than
But
that?
could that home be converted a little bit so that maybe you live on
Yeah,
one level and you
I'm
rent out the
gonna,
bottom level?
and since
Sally,
Kendra,
Kendall, yeah.
yeah, I'm going to put my information. I'd love to talk to you one to one, to see if there's some value that we can offer, idea wise on that. Uh, and Arca, Stephen, any last minute questions? We're up against the time limit here.
I think we're good. I will want to tell you something that Arica doesn't even know is that I'm
You
going to
won the
do,
lotto.
I wish. I'm going to do a podcast um, on March 25th with Mark and Trinken, I think's his name. Do you know him?
Not off the top of my head, but that doesn't mean I don't recognize his face.
Yeah, yeah.
You should send us the information. Did you put it in the chat?
Uh, I'll send it to you because I don't have time to find it right now.
Okay, okay, real good. Uh,
Yeah.
Kendall, thank you for
Yeah.
what a trooper, throwing this all together in a matter of a week. I truly appreciate you helping us
Yeah.
out, and hopefully we'll see you again. And Melanie, I'd love to talk to you in the future. And Eva and RF, whoever the heck you are, if you'd let me know so that
It's
I
Darlene Mac. I don't know why it says RF.
oh, Darlene.
I have no idea why it did that. It's signed in with my work address, I noticed, so it's all intertwined.
Oh, well, good. It's good to see you, honey.
The shadow. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
well,
great.
I've got, well, it was funny because we were talking before we started this about I was on something 3 years ago and somebody had hacked in and was putting some inappropriate stuff up on the Zoom thing. I said, yeah, if I don't know somebody, I don't let them come in. Eva, whoever this is, she snuck in. She tried to have her AI thing. I declined it. I don't know if it picked it up anyway, but we just want to know who's here so that none of us are being compromised. So
Mhm.
anyway, I'm going to end this and we'll go from there. Nice
Yeah.
seeing you all. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Mac.
Hi, thank you.